Hi, welcome back to the Growth Show. This is Whitney, your host, and I am doing something a little different for our last podcast episode of the year. I can't believe that we are putting 1 year of the podcast. I mean, it hasn't been a full year. We launched in around March, but still, I can't believe that we actually launched a podcast this year. So if you are listening, thank you so much for listening and supporting the podcast, supporting me, tuning in. And it's been a lot of fun. I'm going to get into what the podcast has done for me personally and get into that. But I want this episode to be a bit more casual. And if you are watching this on YouTube or watching any shorts of it, I'm doing something a little different where I'm actually going on camera. And when I launched the podcast, I really wanted it to feel like something I could definitely commit to and do. And I know that video is very beneficial for marketing and all of that, but I did not want to put that pressure on myself that I needed to appear on video in order to record a podcast episode. So I chose not to do that. And we'll see what happens and see how I feel with this episode. But I that is one thing for 2025. I want to play around a little bit more and see if maybe I can start showing up on video a little bit. The podcast has really helped my confidence in speaking in general. In the past, when I was trying to do a little bit more on social, like reels and all of that, the talking head reel is popular where you're just speaking to the camera, but I just could not put my thoughts together. I felt very overwhelmed just being on the spot, and also trying to record like a 1 minute or 30-second reel that's really impactful is like super stressful. So maybe that was part of it too. And just gathering enough of your thoughts together to be concise in 30 seconds is a lot. But needless to say, I'm feeling a little bit better. And so I wanted to go on video for this episode. But if you're listening on podcasts, on Apple, Spotify, wherever you listen to your podcasts, you're going to enjoy this just as much. And really, this is all about reflecting on 2024, giving a little behind the curtain of what's gone on in my business for the past year, and some lessons and insights and lessons learned and all of that. And then what is coming for 2025, what I'm focusing on, what you might want to be focusing on, and just a little bit more of those personal goals that I have for myself in 2025 as well. So let's just dive right into it. I have a bit of an outline for myself, and I want to start with some lessons learned in 2024. So first, I want to talk about something that we tried that worked better than expected. That's always the best possible scenario, right? So one of the things that we did was an end of year sale, which was actually kind of a surprise. So I was going into Q4 thinking that, okay, we had done our 3 launches for the year. We had done a Black Friday sale last year. And really it was because we had a launch in Q3 that didn't go as well. And so part of business is about experimentation, right? And when it comes to how I've been launching the past couple years and launching the course, the website program, there's not a lot of experimentation that you can do. If you're only launching 3 times a year, then you really can't experiment with too many things because you don't want to have too many variables in your experiment. I mean, all of you have some kind of science background, probably a lot of you, and understand that when you run an experiment, you don't want to change everything. You want to just change a few variables. But then also, if you are only able to run 3 experiments a year, that's a little risky as a business owner, feeling like, okay, I'm putting all of my eggs in this basket, that this is going to drive revenue and all of that. So anyway, needless to say, I experimented in our Q3 launch of last year, and that experiment did not go well. And the experiment was basically doing different launch events. So I had a video series leading up, and then also trying to turn that into a webinar and send people into a webinar. But that really diffused or just spread out our audience a little too much. And so the numbers going into the launch were not as high. And then doing it that way just didn't have enough people going all the way through the end of the launch. And so our conversion rate dropped, and just overall that launch did not perform the way I'd wanted it to. And it was really, really tough for me to come back from that, to be honest. And I've had conversations with other business owners, and even just, I won't call her out by name, but she's an amazing business owner that many of you probably know. And she was sharing launch that she had done and it didn't go as well. And so she quickly pivoted and offered something different to her audience and was able to kind of salvage the launch, so to speak. And it was really inspiring to hear her say that because she picked herself up and was able to regroup and come up with something new. When I had my launch flop back last year, I was in the depths. I was really not able to come back and think of a different way of doing things. I was just really depressed, honestly, about it. There were other things going on personally in my life, so it was also just like a challenging time. So that definitely contributed to it as well. But she was able to pivot and move forward and then also come up with look at the results of the launch and then say, what can I offer instead that might be more beneficial? And I think that's the other key thing that can be, I think it's a skill you have to hone in time, is interpreting the results, because all of us have things happening in our business, but it can be tough for us to look at that data and say, oh, this is what it could possibly mean. Here's something I should try and do differently. So that, I think, comes with practice makes perfect type of thing. But anyway, so this year our launches were great. They did well. They didn't do as well as I had wanted, but they did pretty well. But then when I was looking at my year-end numbers, I just wasn't really happy with where we were landing. And I was like, let's do a Black Friday sale again. And so it was a little busy behind the scenes because we also did some new affiliate experiments, I will say, as well. Because the other thing that happened, that has been happening over the past couple of years, is when we first launched the program back in 2022, I had some affiliates helping me promote the program, and some of our launches, half of our sales came from affiliates. So that's a lot. The difference between 5 people and 10 people, it's huge. So anyway, our affiliates it wasn't working as well anymore. What we were finding is that when we were doing our launches, we had a specific timeline for when our launches were going to happen. And for some of our affiliates, it just didn't work out with their calendar because everyone's promoting different things at different times and, whatever. And so that was tough. And also seeing that lately, some of our launches were doing better when we had different price points, different incentives, and not all of those price points and incentives were going to our affiliates as well. And so if we're doing better with certain price points and incentives, then I kind of feel like, well, let's see if we need to do that for our affiliates too, to get them the same kinds of results that we're getting when we're doing a launch. So it was really nice. At the end of the year, we had our launch that we were doing, and then we had a few affiliates that we partnered with. So we didn't open up to all of our affiliates. We only partnered with just a few and did a few different things and got some really great results from that. So overall, the launch at the end of the year actually performed a little bit better than I was expecting. So I'm happy with that. That was great. And it just allowed us to, again, experiment, get some data so that when we go into our launch for Q1, we can take some of what we learned with this past launch for Q4 and take it forward and then maybe experiment with a few other things. So overall, I think it was great, but I think it's a lesson in business too. If something that you've been doing isn't working, it is a question of looking at, well, what are the factors that could be contributing to this? And what can we be doing differently? What are a few things that we can tweak to make it more effective? Because if we, it's that whole definition of insanity of doing the same thing and expecting different results, that's something you just have to look at, which it takes time to make these changes in our business. I can attest to that. Things move much more slowly than I would like a lot of times, but I've come to also kind of expect and appreciate that I need to be patient and we are going to move forward, but we need to do it in a way that brings the team along and isn't just pushing too much through all at once. So that was a cool thing that worked better than expected. And I would say for you, if you have something in your business that isn't working, just take that moment to say, what is the root of the problem? What could it be? The timing? Could it be the offer? Could it be the audience size? A lot of times too, I've seen people who say they launched something and and I actually had a colleague mention this, where she felt that her launch had flopped, but it turned out that for the number of people that actually came through the launch and attended her class and then who bought, her conversion rate was actually really good. It was just that she didn't have enough people coming through. So looking at those kinds of things, I think for many of us, probably many of you listening, audience size is a big challenge. And that's why I talk a lot about building your email list and different ways to build your email list and your audience, and going after people who have larger audiences and seeing how you can collaborate with them and get in front of other audiences. And I'll talk a little bit about what we're planning to do for 2025 for our audience growth. But just take heart that sometimes it's really just about the numbers, but also it could be other things that are playing in. And then think about how you can make a little tweak to test and see if your hypothesis of what's working or not working is the thing. I mean, it could be as simple as you have a lead magnet that you are sharing around, but no one's downloading it. Maybe it's the title. Maybe you could play with the title. Maybe it's the description. Have a friend to go through it and make sure that there's nothing broken. There's just so many different things that we can do to kind of like get to, okay, what's not working, and then run little experiments to just see what we can do. And I would spend your time first on doing that experimentation when it comes to like sales and marketing. Operations is good too. And there are things that I have done this year to work on our operations, behind the scenes administration and delivery of our programs and all of that. But if you're going to spend time kind of driving into the data, I think focusing on sales is always a good place to start, just because it's the lifeblood of a business. Okay, so now I want to go into a challenge that I faced this year and how I overcame it. So for me, it was about our team. And I think for anyone who is growing their business, you're going to run into this situation where you either need help, or you've hired someone and they're not the right fit, or I don't know. I don't know what else could be going on. But for me, what happened is I had someone on the team and they just weren't the right fit. And I kept trying to talk myself out of changing things up and making excuses, and also feeling like, oh, it's going to be so hard to go out and hire again. I don't know if I'm going to find the right person, and just really talking myself out of something that really needed to happen. And so I would just say to you all, if your gut is telling you something in your business, you really need to listen. So right now where I am today with that team issue is that we did part ways with that one team member. And I did feel a great sense of relief, because I think it was the right decision. We were able to leave on good terms and all of that. And we're now in the process of replacing that position. And it was a great opportunity to have one of my other team members come in and help with our hiring process, because I have shared that on a prior episode. I've brought it up a couple times in different conversations I've been having with guests on the podcast as well. I'm very passionate about hiring because I know how challenging it is and how it really held me back, and how transformative hiring has been for my happiness, my fulfillment in my business, my ability to scale my business. It's been everything, but it can be really tough to figure out what to do. So if you do want to go back to the hiring episode, just search for that. But I had a team member come in because I had my hiring process documented, but a lot of it was still very manual. And so I finally was able to let go of that one and be like, all right, Priscilla, she's editing this too, so she's listening. Take this and go and, figure it out. And she was able to. And so we're in the process now of that. And yeah, I think it'll go well. And even if we don't have the right people coming in, we're going to stick with it and make sure that we find the right person. So that was just something that I really needed to let go sooner. I wish I had, honestly, but that's okay. We're moving forward. And then finally, final lesson, I want to reflect on how my perspective on growth and success has evolved this year, and my focus on business and like my relationship to business and work. So this year, I definitely focused more on my business. Last year, business was feeling pretty hard. I will be honest. I was really just wanting to do enough to get by and keep things running. And anything else just felt like kind of like, what's the point? There was some resentment there. It was tough. I really just wanted to escape from my business and I wanted to just get on with my life and focus on that and just feeling a lot of emotions about it, honestly. And I'm very happy to say that I am finding joy in my business again this year. And I will attribute it to a few reasons. One, as I mentioned, was getting more team and support in place. So even up until earlier, midway through this year, I was still the project manager for everything going on in the business. I had my hands in everyone's work and seeing what they were doing and giving feedback and making sure things were happening. Some people were project managing certain things in certain areas, but like making sure that everything was coming together and checking in on things, that wasn't always being handled by someone else. I was still doing a lot of that. And so now I have a team member, wonderful Priscilla, who is stepping into that role and allowing my brain to not have to be worrying about, is this thing done? Is this thing done? It's freeing us up to move forward more quickly on ideas and projects that we have. Like, for example, the sale at the end of the year and all those new things that we tried never would have been possible if it had just been me driving that forward with another team member who was really focused on implementation. So it's tough to have that brain of both like project planning, high level, and then also execution and implementation. So having the right team in place, having the right support in place was really critical for me to just not feel bogged down by just the burden of things, and also having that sounding board. So I've worked with business coaches my entire business career. I had one business coach who I worked with for many, many years. She was amazing, Kiera. And we stopped working together, I think it was last year, might have been earlier this year, just because it just felt like it was time. So, there was no real reason other than that. And then I've been working with a marketing coach who, now that I don't have that business coach anymore, Tony, who you've maybe heard me talk about a little bit, but she's sat in that role of being also a little bit on the business strategy side, but a lot of it has to do with sales and marketing and being that sounding board. But she's not going to be talking to me about hiring and team management as much. We have had some of those conversations, but I personally feel it is just so important in our lives, in our businesses, to have those sounding boards. And I will say too that my husband, Dylan, has always been such a wonderful sounding board for me as well. And he's just given me great advice and guidance throughout my career and our relationship. So I think it's great to have kind of this board of directors a little bit that is in your corner, that you can talk to and work through issues and things like that. So I think building in and having another support that's come in to kind of round out my little board of directors, board of advisors, has been really pivotal in helping me just feel more at ease in my business and just more kind of like calm, I guess. And then the podcast has also really added to my levels of satisfaction and confidence and connection. So I've been able to connect with some really great guests on the podcast, and I've been able to guest on some podcasts as well. And, I realized that the podcast was going to be really helpful for me back, I think earlier this year, or maybe it was late last year, when I realized that when I got on a coaching call with my students within the Wellness Pro website system, how good and energized and useful and helpful and fulfilled I felt after those calls. And I realized that I wasn't having enough of those conversations in my business. And even though I'm a very like asynchronous person, I really don't love getting on a lot of calls and having to be on the phone, because with the way I travel and the different time zones that I like to be in, or even just different settings, it's not always conducive to having like regular calls and regular conversations. That's why the podcast can be really helpful. But I realized that being able to share my knowledge, to connect with people, is something that really gives me a lot of satisfaction. And so I'm really grateful for the podcast, and I can't wait to see where it continues to go in 2025. Another thing that has helped in the business too is giving myself permission to just focus on one thing. We are in terms of an offer. So there's many schools of thought about, okay, having like a profit ladder and having a low ticket item, and then like a course or a program, and then having a mastermind. And I really toyed with those ideas last year and felt a lot of just feeling not good about the fact that I really didn't resonate with those other things. I really couldn't yet figure out what would be something that was like an entry level product or offer before our website program, which teasing next year, we might be introducing something to solve that problem. But then in terms of like having a higher ticket thing like a mastermind or a membership or something like that, it just none of it really felt right. And so I was spending a lot of energy, I think, like battling about those things, as opposed to just saying, you have a great product, you have a great course, this website program. Why don't you just focus on that and really focus on getting that to grow? And that's advice you also see from people saying focus on just one offer. And you can have like other little things that lead up into that offer and all of that, but your main focus should be on that offer. So I think doing that has really helped, and committing to it, and also just recommitting to the value that it provides. Like I've just seen such great results from our clients and our customers who launch their websites, and they're just so proud and happy, and really like leaning into that, because I think all of us at some point can start feeling like, or we focus on the people who didn't fully achieve the results, or we have been doing the thing that we're doing for years and years, and we're like, maybe we should be doing something different. Maybe we need to change something up. And that can be really distracting, and it can really take you out from moving forward and fully committing to the things that you need to commit to. So that was one other thing. And then finally, I think identifying where things are hard and then fixing them. And I'm going to talk through that a little bit more too, but giving patience and time to fix those things. So those are some of my lessons. Now, in terms of just like some behind the scenes of this past year, and some milestones and major achievements and projects, and honestly, I can't even pinpoint like one major project or thing I'm proud of, because we've actually done a lot this year. And when I was thinking and reflecting back, I can't believe how much we have accomplished. So we did a rebrand of the business itself. So our branding changed, our logo, had the same business name and all of that. But we also rebranded to be a little bit more broad in terms of not just dietitians, but also focusing on wellness professionals in general. So we did that. With that, we renamed the website program as well, which meant changing up a bunch of, sales materials, how the program was called in Kajabi, and updating all the links. And it was a big job behind the scenes, and updating videos that still had the old name. So that was a big one behind the scenes. And also just for selling the program, we moved from the dietitian website system to the Wellness Pro website system. Launched the podcast, which had been something that I had wanted to do for years, but finally did it, and just so happy about that. Hired a new team member, so brought Priscilla on. First, Priscilla was actually brought on to help with doing more outreach and collaboration and networking for me. So getting me on more podcasts, securing other collaboration opportunities, and then her role has evolved since there. And I think it's just like a lesson too. When you are looking to get some support in your business, you can start with whatever it is that you want that help for, but don't feel limited to that. Be open to what other skills and interests that person has. Make sure that they align with what you need in the business too. But I think, and that's happened a few times where we've had people come into the business and then it has evolved into a different role, and it continues to evolve. And I think that that's a beautiful thing, because we are all evolving all the time. So just because you hired someone in a certain place in your business, they may want to be doing some different things 6 months, a year from now. And as long as those things align with what you need, I think that's a great fit. We also held 2 bundles. So we do our Thriving Business Summer Bundle, and we did a holiday bundle as well. Our summer one went did really well. We had a lot of contributors there. Our holiday one that just wrapped up didn't do as well. And so we're going to look into next year to just reevaluate. Should we keep doing the bundles? Should we do them less frequently? Should we kind of maybe alternate doing a bundle and then doing some other kind of thing? Because they're great list building events. They're great for finding new people to collaborate with. Obviously, they're great. Many of you signed up and you got the great resources, and it's helpful for you to get resources and learn about new people that you can tap into for services or advice or whatever the case may be. So I think bundles are great. I just want to make sure that, because there are a lot of work behind the scenes to collect all the information, go through everyone's contributions to build out the pages and all of that. You've heard me talk about bundles in a few different episodes too. So if you want to kind of hear what a bundle is, I think I had that in an episode that was more about like list building, ways to grow your audience and all of that. But we did that. Then, like I mentioned, we launched 3 times, plus we did our Black Friday sale, and we worked with 35 plus new entrepreneurs with our website program. So that was also super wonderful and amazing to welcome more people into our audience and help them launch their websites. So I think the biggest thing that I was like excited about and fulfilling when it comes to all of this is just being able to get my ideas and dreams and see them come to life, because I definitely can be impatient and I see other people doing things and they're things that we should be doing. And sometimes I get frustrated that I can't do those things because we don't have the resources or the time. And I'm starting to feel now like we do have the resources and the time to do those things. And that's just super fulfilling for me. I really love being able to chart my own course. That was one of the things I think was the most frustrating for me in corporate, was I had a lot of autonomy in my role, but then at the same time, everything we did had to be run up the ladder and approved and all of that. And I'm all for being a team player and making sure that things are the best for everyone. But I also really love just being able to do whatever I want. So and I discuss everything with my team and we kind of make the best decision for the business and all of that. But that's, I think, really, really fulfilling. And then one thing that we did that was more of a behind the scenes, like process improvement, internal change, and this is still ongoing, but will be done hopefully by Q1 before our next launch, is improving our website templates within our program. So one of the things that I also like to do that can be a little painful because it's kind of like revealing the truth about things is to study where are the bottlenecks or where are the things that are taking too long or that are just not effective or efficient, that maybe they were fine when we were at a certain place, but they're not good anymore. And so what I recently discovered was that the templates that we have built in our course take a lot of time for our team to set up. So one of the things that happens in our course is once a student comes in, they have one of 4 templates, website templates. They're different designs. They have the different sections and pages and all of that. And what we offer is you come in, you tell us which design, and then we install it and set it up for you. And we put in your brand colors, brand fonts, your logo, and all of that so that you can go in and you already have a leg up. You don't need to spend all the time figuring out how to do that stuff. You can be just putting in your copy, moving sections around for your services, sourcing the photos that you want, putting photos you want in there and all of that. So trying to cut down on the amount of time that you need to do. The problem is that process on our side is actually very time consuming. And then what happens is if we have a really great launch and we have a lot of students come in, then it takes a lot of time for the one developer on our team to set up and install all of those websites. And if everyone's coming in at the same time, it's all bundled and bunched into one 1 or 2 week period. So it's super stressful for everyone. I'm, breathing down his neck being like, oh, are they done yet? Are the websites done yet? He's obviously working overtime to get all of it done. And then I want to make sure that our students get their websites so that they can get in and start customizing them and moving through them as quickly as possible. So it was just a bottleneck in so many different ways. It was stressing me out. I really didn't enjoy that part. It wasn't good from a team member perspective. it also really, I saw, was like a huge constraint on our ability to scale. If we can only handle so many website setups in one time, then we can't really scale. We can't have a launch. I can't spend money and time building up and having a really successful launch because we're not actually going to be able to deliver on that. So that's not good. And also there were things in the templates that could be improved to make them easier for our students to work through and customize as well. So it's going to be a win-win to improve them. Both, it's going to allow us to make sure that we can deliver them more quickly. They're going to be easier for our students to then customize as well. They're going to be more streamlined. And it's just going to allow us to scale and not feel this constraint. And hopefully the beginning of a cohort won't be such a stressful time to kind of get everyone up and ready. So I would say in your own business, if there is something that is feeling hard or really challenging and it's making it difficult for you to kind of see, okay, well, how can I scale if this thing is not working? Or maybe it's just causing you a lot of angst. There is a solution. It might take you some time. It took me time to really dig in and be like, what is the solution here? What's the best way? I mean, I knew the problem, but what's the best solution? And it will take some time to maybe figure that out. And it may take some time to then implement whatever the solution is. And it can be painful at times. So like for us, we had to decide, okay, when is the right time for us to do this so that we're not doing it while we have a cohort, in place, and who are the team members that need to be involved to do it and all of that. And we're still in the midst of doing it right now. So these things take time, but I would say if there are things that are a struggle for you, try and figure out and unpack like what could be done to improve it. Is it a system that needs to be improved? Is it how you actually approach doing a certain thing? And don't be afraid to really question everything. Just because you had been doing something some way at one point doesn't mean that that is what's going to get you to the next phase. And you can be reflecting on, you can be surveying your customers, you can be asking your team members, you can be going into places where colleagues are hanging out and asking them how they handle that issue. Just try and collect as much information as possible. I use ChatGPT as well, which that's something I'll touch on as well that I will continue to be focusing on and using for 2025. But I would also say if you're having a problem and you're just not really sure what to do to address it, ChatGPT can just be a great sounding board as well. I would even say that ChatGPT is one of those board members in my business that I go to bounce ideas and just work through things and kind of organize my thoughts and pull out what are the true issues? What are the potential solutions out there? What are the pros and cons of each solution? It's not a perfect thing. You shouldn't take it all, just as it's presented, but it is great for processing different things. And I will say that probably the worst instance where I was having this challenge was during my wedding week. We were actually launching a cohort. I got married this past year as well in June. And I don't know that I didn't think about it. I really tried to prepare the team for it so that I didn't have to be thinking about the installs during when I was actually getting married. But unfortunately, it didn't work out that way. I think I was just hoping for things to work out. But in actuality, that was just a bit too, it just wasn't going to happen. So that was challenging. So I'm really excited for what's to come for that and for improving our site setup process in the future. All right, so now let's look ahead at 2025 and some of the things that I'm focusing on that you might want to be considering focusing on. Maybe you're already thinking about them, and this is just another check in that column. But one thing I would say is just the continued use of AI as a tool. So I mentioned that ChatGPT is like a trusted advisor to me. I also use it just as a tool for copy editing a lot of times and just thinking through different problems. I think that it can also be something that so I think if you are not using AI right now, it is definitely something that you should be looking at. And I think the sky's the limit. The more you use it, the more you're going to think of ways that you can continue to use it and use it in different ways. And I would say almost anything that you're doing that you're spending a little bit of time on, it's probably something you could go to ChatGPT or some other AI tool to help you figure out. So just keep that in the back of your mind. And if you're using AI now, that's amazing. I love to hear it. If you have any unique ways that you're using it that you want to share, I'm all ears, because I think that would be some fun podcast topics in the future of just how people are using AI to just work smarter, more efficiently, improve the outputs. I feel that because I can use AI to do some copy editing, I can do a much better job with what I produce and what I put out there than if I were just spending hours trying to figure it out on my own. And you may have heard on the episode that I recorded a couple weeks ago with Lorraine, she is also talking about AI and ChatGPT being another place to get found. And there's a few other platforms too. And I think that's really interesting. I saw someone else talking about it too as another search engine, basically, because you have Google, but how can your content potentially be getting you found and surfaced in these other places? Because people are sometimes going to ChatGPT to find their answers instead of going to Google. Although Google does have some AI tools that they're putting into search results as well now too. So lots more that will continue to grow. And then I think the other thing that's interesting that I've been hearing people talk about, I don't think it's necessarily like a new trend, but I think it's something to keep in the back of your mind, is just these authentic connections and networking. So social media, it's out there, but I think so many of us are longing for more personal connections, maybe going deeper rather than going really broad. I've been involved in a few networking events this past year, just virtual networking events, and found a lot of value out of them. And then I have like one colleague who is actually starting up a paid networking type of group. And I've had another colleague mention this desire to have like a smaller networking group. And I've heard other people, you had probably heard Haley on the podcast earlier this year talking about how she's really leaning into collaborations as a way for growing her business. So I think it's out there, and it's just continuing to look at that as being a way to deepen your professional network so you can be leaning on each other, sharing referrals, learning about new ideas in new places, sharing audiences. So all of that, I just feel that that is something that I know I'm going to be focusing on going into the year, and is something that I think other people are starting to pick up on as well, and do more of. And really, websites are still relevant. They're still going to be that foundation that you use when you're going out and doing that networking or collaborating. We created a page on our website to streamline our collaboration efforts. So it's not necessarily like linked in our navigation, but anytime that I come across someone that I want to collaborate with, or we're maybe in a similar group or bundle or something like that, Priscilla will reach out and share that collaboration page, and we have a list of the different ways that we can collaborate, whether it's a freebie swap or having someone on the podcast or having them in a future bundle or them being an affiliate. And it just streamlines that ability to collaborate because it has some systems in it. It's not all one-off, because I think what's kept me from doing the collaboration and networking in the past is just then that very manual process of like, just it seems like reinventing the wheel every time, even though there's only like so many ways that we can collaborate, and you can kind of pick which are going to be the best things for you. So I guess that's the other piece of it, is seeing how you can systematize some of the networking or collaboration you're doing so that you can do it more quickly, you can reach more people, and not have it feel like a very tedious manual process as well. And then finally, just wrapping up like my goals for 2025. So for me and my team and my business, I'm really excited to be increasing our capacity. We are, like I mentioned, hiring another team member, and I'm just excited. I think we'll probably actually be bringing on another team member as well. So just continuing to build the amount of work that we can take on and the projects that we can work on. And I was actually laughing with someone recently because I was like, I never wanted to build like an agency or have a big team of people to manage, but yet that is kind of what's starting to happen. Not necessarily like an agency model, but just having enough resources within the team. And I think one of the things to keep in mind is that you start with hiring one person and then it just kind of grows and grows and grows. And you do it in a way that feels authentic to how you manage, how you run your business, what you need. And I don't feel overwhelmed with the thought of having a bunch of people on the team, especially now that I have someone who is a bit more of that like overseer. I think that at some point you kind of need that, and being open to having someone in that role and like releasing the pressure and the need to control and have your hands in everything. And I've really wanted to delegate and offload things, but I also then, I would say that, but then I would keep control of things. So I think it's a process of letting that control go and leaning into the leadership, the more visionary type of stuff, being more of that face, doing the high value things like the sales and being the face of marketing and all of that. Those are the places where you can often feel more fulfilled. And those are the things that are going to help grow the business. But obviously, if you're doing all the things in your business, then it can be hard to like have the energy to do those things as well. And then the other thing that we are going to be doing is investing in ads. So we have done ads a little bit in the past. It's not something that I've really talked about on the podcast because I think, well, it's something I need to learn about. And it's really more for when you have kind of done as much as you can with organic, you've learned your audience, and it's not like I know everything there is to know or anything like that, but you need to have some like proven numbers behind you to understand how much you should be spending and the kinds of places and things that you should be putting out there. And it's still going to be a learning process. And I'm sure I'm going to be crying at times and beating my head against the wall and all of that. But that is something that I really want to focus on, both learning about ads and using them to scale further and get more people into our audience and have more people in our launches, because I really want to get to 50 business owners enrolled in our program for 2025. So we've been at about the 35 mark for the past 2 years. And I really want to break past that and see if we can get to 50 this year. So that is like my big goal. You've heard it here first. We'll see if I get there. And if we don't, that's okay, but we're going to try. And then eventually my goal is 100 per year, which, those numbers sound kind of small, but it's hard. I can attest to it. So, and then one of the things that in terms of like smaller things that I really want to commit to is I want to share more of our client stories, because at this point we have worked with over 100 business owners and so many of them are doing amazing things. You hear some of them on the podcast. I want to do more of that. I want to spotlight more of their stories. I want to share more about what their businesses are, because I think that there's so much value in seeing those different business models and what different business owners are doing, what kinds of revenue streams they have, who are their audiences, how are they relating to those different audiences, how are they presenting those different revenue streams and different business offerings and services on their website, how are they evolving their business, what's working for them right now. So I think that that's probably going to be very valuable to you, and I want to do more of that. So that's what I'm committing to as well, and that might be something that you need to do as well in your business. I think we can be so focused on moving forward and what's the next thing we have to do. And it can be tough to be like, well, let me look back and reflect back on the clients I have worked with and telling their stories and going back to them and hearing how things are going and using that to share with new people in your audience who want that inspiration, who want to see what's possible for them and understand how those people are tackling their challenges. I think that's just such powerful stuff. And it does take time to do that. It takes time to do all of these things, right? And I've wanted for a while to have like a database of customer stories on our website, like something that was more searchable. So if you're a sports dietitian, what are the websites and businesses that I've worked with that you can look at to see, okay, what are the different websites and business models that they've worked with? Or maybe someone who has multiple niches. Okay, how are they handling that on their website? So we'll see. We'll see if we can implement that like searchable database. But at the very least, I want to find ways to share stories. So that is a little bit of what 2024 was like for me, what I'm thinking about for 2025, and just some of those high level things. I really want to thank you so much for listening, being a listener of the podcast in general, listening to this episode. I hope that it gave you some ideas of things you might be wanting to look at in your own business. I would also love to hear what your biggest takeaway was for you in 2024. Maybe any of the different categories of things I went over, any lessons that you learned, any big milestones and goals you achieved, and also what you're looking forward to in 2025 or things that you're focusing on. So I would love to just hear that on Instagram. You can send me a DM at Whitney Bateson and let me know what you're thinking about and what you're focusing on. Just personally for me also in 2025. So you may know by now, if you've been listening, that I am a digital nomad, professional traveler, constant traveler. I've been traveling the world for 6 years now, almost, I think. Yeah, I think we're at 6 years. And so Dylan, my husband, and I will continue to be traveling in 2025. We are going to go to Buenos Aires next. So we'll be there from mid-January until early April. So we're excited about that. And we are hoping to buy a home sometime in 2025. So we don't want to live anywhere full time. We're still not planning on doing that. And it will be somewhere outside the United States. We are not planning to move back to the United States. I think there's maybe a soccer game or something going on. I don't know if you hear that in the background. But yeah, so just personally, we're just excited to keep traveling. We're really enjoying Latin America and spending a little bit longer in some places. But we do also want to head over to Europe and go back to the States to see family during the warmer months. So just, yeah, looking forward to another year of travel and adventure and connecting with all of you and sharing more resources, bringing more guests onto the podcast to share their stories and insights. And if there is anything that you would like to hear or see from me more in 2025, please share it with me. I am all ears. This is for you. I get just so much joy out of knowing that any of this resonates with you. So feel free to get in touch. Like I said, send me a DM. You can send me an email too. You can do Whitney@whitneybateson.com. That works. And I just want to wish you a healthy, happy new year. And